The engine had been dead for 6 hours, and 6 different hands had already failed to wake it. Now it was her turn, and the moment she reached for the toolbox, a voice cut across the garage. Don't bother. It's a man's engine, not a puzzle for her to play with. She didn't flinch. She just picked up the wrench anyway. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Her name was Mara, and she had been fixing things since before she could spell the word mechanic. Her father's hands had taught her hands, in a garage that smelled like rust and diesel and patience. She didn't talk much. She let the work speak. But standing in that motor pool, under a sign that read excellence through service, she felt the eyes on her before she heard the words. 6 soldiers, 1 broken transport engine, and 1 young corporal, arms crossed so tight his knuckles had gone pale, staring at her like she'd wandered into the wrong building. We don't have time for this, he said. His name was Corporal Dale Whitfield, and he was 24 years old, 3 years into a job he was good at, and utterly unprepared for the idea that someone outside his circle might be better. Command wants this vehicle rolling by morning. We need someone who's actually worked on a tactical engine before. I have, Mara said quietly. More of them than you'd guess. He didn't believe her. Nobody did. Behind him, 2 other soldiers were already smothering laughter, one whispering something to the other, and a third pointed at her toolbox like it was a joke that hadn't landed yet. She felt the heat rise in her chest. Not anger, exactly. Something older. Something tired. She had heard this before, in different garages, different towns, from different men who looked just like Dale. And every time, she had the same choice: walk away or prove it. She chose the engine. Dust hung suspended in the slanted afternoon light pouring through the open bay door, catching on every breath of air the ceiling fans pushed across the room. The garage had gone unnaturally still. Somewhere outside, a generator hummed low, like the whole world was holding its breath alongside her. Mara crouched over the engine block, fingers tracing along a manifold no one else had thought to check, and for a moment, the only sound was metal against metal, soft and deliberate. She thought she'd be ignored the entire time. She was wrong. Dale hadn't walked away. He stood there, arms still crossed, but his eyes had stopped rolling and started watching. There was something in the way she moved, economical, unhurried, certain, that reminded him of mechanics he'd actually respected, the old hands back at his first posting who never wasted emotion. He didn't want to admit it, but a small, uncomfortable doubt had crept into his certainty. What if he was wrong about her? Then came the moral weight of the moment, the part nobody talks about on the surface. Because the easy thing, the comfortable thing, would have been for Mara to demand recognition, to make a speech about being underestimated, to turn this into a battle of pride. But that wasn't who she was. She wasn't here to win an argument. She was here to fix a truck so that men and women depending on it could do their jobs and come home safe. The justice of it didn't need to be loud. It only needed to be true. Her gloved hands worked deeper into the engine, tracing a fuel line that had been overlooked by 5 mechanics who'd assumed the obvious answer was the right one. Her brow furrowed. Her jaw tightened. Somewhere behind her, the murmurs had quieted into something closer to held breath. There, she said, almost to herself. A cracked seal. Small enough to miss if you weren't looking for it with the right kind of patience. The kind that comes from years of being told to look harder because nobody believed your first answer. She replaced it with steady, practiced hands, the kind that didn't tremble even when an entire room was watching and waiting for her to fail. She straightened, wiped her palms against her overalls, and gave the simplest instruction: try it now. The engine turned. It coughed once, twice, and then roared to life, a deep, mechanical thunder rolling through the garage and out into the afternoon air. For one full second, nobody moved. Then the soldier with the watch and the easy grin let out a whoop, clapping his hands together, and the laughter that had once been aimed at Mara turned suddenly into something else entirely. Admiration, raw and unguarded. Dale didn't whoop. He didn't cheer. He just uncrossed his arms, slowly, like a man putting down a weapon he hadn't realized he was carrying. He walked over, extended his hand, and said the only thing that mattered: I was wrong. Thank you. Mara shook it. No speech. No triumph. Just a small, tired smile that held more dignity than any victory lap ever could. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. And so does respect, even when it takes the long way around, even when it has to be earned one stubborn engine at a time. The dust still hung in the light when she packed up her tools that evening, the same light that had watched her walk in as a stranger and walk out as something else entirely. Not because she demanded it, but because she simply did the work and let the truth speak for itself. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments what part stayed with you the longest. And if you believe people deserve the chance to be judged by their hands and their heart instead of anyone's first assumption, subscribe and join us for more stories like Mara's, because the world needs more of them, and so do we.